Thank you. Can people hear me all right? Can I just say it is lovely to be here. That sounds inadequate. But I just have a bit of a feeling coming here on the train, which was an hour and a half late and broke down just a very little way out of London. And of course, it's a privatised train. That Westminster is determined not to let us see how things can be elsewhere. Because I tell you, when you live, as I live in London, which I find very difficult, increasingly difficult, I used to love it, it is so hard to escape the sense of control. And there is a new book called Dominion, which is about if the Nazis had won the last war. And more as I read this book, it feels like we've already had that happen with the government that we have in Westminster. I'm being serious. So I'm just so pleased to be here. It's a privilege. And I just want to say something about myself. I've reached a time in my life when I am a grandfather, in no particular order, to Evie, to Poppy, Matty, Charlie, Elsie, and Martha. A time when I think of the past, and I also think of the future. I think of life, and I think obviously a lot about death, while I try to live in the present. I do a lot of taking stock. I remember the people that I have who are close to me, especially those no longer with us. My greatest joy, apart from the people that I love, is being part of a movement, the Psychiatric System Survivors Movement, being part of its emergence, its development, and its coming of age, with all our frailties and failings, but our strengths and achievements. And that's one reason why this book, Mad Matters, speaks, I think, strongly to me, so clearly and helpfully, positively and persuasively. And I think this is especially important in these times when it seems to me that destroyers are so powerful and so set, I feel, on dividing people, demeaning people, and making some hate and despise others, not least people living on benefits and mental health service users, survivors. And I want to say something to start with. I think there's a point which I have to make. None of us can approach this subject of madness without ourselves being personally engaged in it. None of us can come at it from a distance, unaffected, unbiased, unaffectable by it. That's true for me, and it's true for everyone here, because put simply, we are all members of the human race. I do realise that there are people out there who seem anxious to persuade us that they are not members of the human race. For example, some members of the British Cabinet, some mechanistic psychiatric researchers, some grimly neoliberal policymakers and CEOs of multinational corporations. But I'd want to reassure them, all of them, even though they may not see this as reassurance, unless something is going on that's beyond the level of my usual paranoia, and there are aliens amongst us, they, like the rest of us, are members of the human race. And all that means is that we come to madness together from our common humanity, because it can and does affect us all and those close to us. I say this because, to the best of my understanding, and from all the evidence I have been able to accumulate and examine, traditional, supposedly scientific and objective understandings of madness just don't stack up. They don't hold, they are not defensible, they've repeatedly been found wanting. While the medical model of mental illness still dominates and perhaps grows stronger, repeatedly and more, mental health service users, survivors, say it's unhelpful, damaging, and diminishes them. I want to say that madness is something that's possible for any and all of us. I want to say that what's called mental illness, disorder, pathology, and included in diagnostic categories is part of the spectrum of human emotions, perceptions, and experience. There's no separate special group of mad people, except when humans determinedly seek to create one. There is no separate biological category of mad or madness gene. I know that there are well-funded searches for these continuing to go on, just as there were searches for the Holy Grail and medieval alchemists sought to make base metal gold, but they aren't doing well. They're getting well-funded, but they aren't doing well. Of course, what I'm saying does not mean that there aren't things particularly associated with madness, that madness will actually hit us all in our lives. Least of all does it mean that all of us will enter the formal mental health psychiatric system set up to deal with it, although some of us will, and this will have consequences of its own, as well as the effects of our actual perceptions and feelings, nor does it mean that there's a cut and dried meaning for madness or a new system of categorization or objective reality that's out there waiting to be found or that we need to be looking for. What there are perceptions, emotions, actions, identities, which may be identified as, included in, or driven into such madness. Any of us may be driven mad or treated as mad or both. There may be few objectives, few absolute facts and realities in madness, but there are many subjectives, feelings, perceptions, emotions, and from these, and from how these are and will be seen, come the objectives associated with madness, the way it's analysed and dealt with, it's filed, stacked, the way that it's pushed into the prevailing psychiatric paradigm and system. And I want to say again that madness is something that concerns us all, which can happen to any of us. Any of us can be driven to madness, distress and despair through loss, through love and longing, unfulfilled hopes, oppression, through difficulty, through trauma, through violence, through hardship, through suffering. I want to say that we live in a maddening, and it feels to me, and Stephen said it, increasingly maddening world. And I want to say that this book, the subject of our gathering, Mad Matters, I really do think, and I have to read lots of books, is part of a breakthrough, which I think can equip us better than maybe ever before to deal with madness, to reclaim madness, and to understand madness. I realise that's saying a lot, and I'm not one who usually goes to extremes. And I remember a friend of mine saying, I'm not an optimist. He said that Peter's not so much a glass half empty rather than half full person as someone who can't quite find the glass. So I'm not saying this, like I've had to find something exciting to say. I really do feel this. We can put ourselves outside our humanity and pretend this issue, madness, is to do with others and affects others, but not ourselves. We can delude ourselves that the Daily Mail is getting it right when it tries to threaten people with the reality of themselves, so they want to deny it, and the diversity of others to encourage us to hate or fear and loathe them. Or we can reconceive madness and try to re-understand and reclaim it together. That's why I think that Mad Matters is a landmark book, a landmark event for all those of us who want to advance understanding and responses to madness and distress for ourselves and for other people. I think it gives us new chances, new hope, new possibilities. Mad Matters, I want to stress, is a for rather than against book. So like the book, I'm here less to bury psychiatry than to praise the possibility of alternatives. Now, let me say something more about Mad Matters, which I hope can be as helpful to you here as it's been to me. Of course, there's the issue of money, and that's such a problem. For all the talk about access and free access, we still have to be able to have the book. I've now read 3 reviews of Mad Matters, and all have come to the same conclusion as I have done. This book represents a major breakthrough in understanding and a real basis for change for the future. It's often seemed to me, and I think maybe other mental health service users, psychiatric system survivors, that the struggle that was taking place, that had to take place, was of survivors against psychiatry. And of course, this can feel like a lonely and one-sided struggle. But I think we can get a different sense from Mad Matters of what can be possible, because here we can see, represented in this book, a wide range of interests coming together, linking up, and working together honestly and equally. The book offers its own definition of mad studies, its immediate focus as an umbrella term that's used to embrace the body of knowledge that has emerged from psychiatric system survivors, mad identified people, anti-psychiatry academics and activists, critical psychiatrists and radical therapists. This body of knowledge is wide-ranging and includes scholarship that's critical of the mental health system, as well as radical and mad activist scholarship. This field of study is informed by and generated by the perspectives of psychiatric survivors and mad identified researchers and academics. So there are many chapters here written by people with direct experience as recipients of the mental health system, psychiatric survivors and mad identified people, as they call them, and also others written by academics and allies with personal and or professional interest in this area. People here, I felt, were not speaking for others, but offering their own different contributions and understandings. And here we can see the value, the strength, and the possibilities of such solidarity. This feels then to me like a struggle that really may be able to be won. None of us have to be on our own. Our different knowledges have legitimacy and demand equal respect, and in these covers are given it. We have common cause. We can have common cause. Together we can build new, inclusive and cumulative knowledges. We can build trust with each other under new banners of shared social and humanistic understanding. One of the difficulties I think that's always faced survivors and others working to challenge psychiatry is that they don't want to replace one orthodoxy, one mammoth idea with another, one monolithic theory with another. They don't want yet another dominating explanation or set of ideas imposed on them, or risk imposing them on themselves. However, it's long been clear that for survivors, more social approaches, both to understanding and to responding to their situations, make much more sense and feel much more positive than their experience of the damaging and stigmatizing medical models that have long been attached to them. Mad Matters, I think, takes us forward further on this journey, both because of its massive evidence and because of what that includes. A body of knowledge, I've concluded from reading this book, is better than an overarching monolithic theory which can overshadow you. The book offers such a diverse and holistic body of knowledges from many sources, so many insights, so much experience, all in one place. It takes us further forward. It's given me, and I think it can give others, further hope for the future. And as I wrote in the foreword, the book is a vital sign of these times. It's delineated a new subject of study, and in doing so offers us much greater hope of making sense both of what goes on within us, what impacts from outside, and how the two interact, and how their relationship may be made a much more positive and humanistic one. The self-set task of this book is not to destroy or knock down, but to create and energize. Not only does it offer critiques of psychiatry and associated law, public policy, media, and propaganda, as well as subjecting psychiatrists' questionable treatments, knowledge, production, pedagogy, and academic activities to serious and necessary scrutiny. Not only does it examine long-standing tendencies to criminalize and pathologize madness and people as mad, and associate it with violence and individualized irrationality and deviance, more important maybe, it also explores the history, culture, and language of madness and mad people. It highlights the diversity of mad experience and understandings, the violence of psychiatry, the ambiguity of its reformism, and the emergence of survivor research and academic engagement. As the editors of the book say within it, it combines the more established understandings of Mad Matters, including anti-psychiatry approaches and long-standing psychiatric survivor narratives, with an exciting and burgeoning form of activism and conceptualizations emanating from a new generation of people engaging in a variety of forms of radical and mad activist scholarship. So within these pages, I don't think we find a new orthodoxy, something that activist psychiatric system survivors, I've said, have wisely long guarded against. Instead, there's food, loads of it, to nurture different social understandings and strategies, both in response to madness and distress and to the psychiatric system. There are strategies here for the future, both to challenge psychiatry and the psychiatric system and beyond, and for reconceiving and building something radically different for all of us. The book can give us confidence. These are highly contradictory times, though. I need to say that even as survivors and our allies are creating possibilities through books and work like this, so we are also coming under even greater attack from the harsh neoliberal politics and ideology now being unleashed, not just in England, not just in the UK, but internationally, which I think works in tandem with psychiatry, that seems even more determined to increase its empire, converting more and more social problems we can associate with such neoliberalism, into personal pathologies. So we have seen with DSM-5, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, 5th edition. The anti-human politics is reflected not only in increasing cuts in support and services to help survivors, control, I would say, though, does not seem to diminish, and also in public services more generally, on which survivors are particularly likely to be reliant, but also a massive related attack through so-called benefit reform. Last Saturday on TV, I saw the Scottish leader, Alex Salmond, promising to get rid of bedroom tax. That's more than we are hearing in England. It was good to see his announcement applauded, but there's a much wider attack on benefits that's both cutting people's living standards, forcing them to move and break up relationships, terrifying and stigmatizing people. We know this is resulting in higher, widening levels of fear and dread, of feeling suicidal, and of some people taking their own lives. War is being waged on claimants, reducing benefit levels, imposing ceilings on housing benefit, making the system more difficult to negotiate, and on the overall amount of benefits people can receive, changing benefits from entitlements to means-tested, forcing claimants through draconian and inappropriate tests and assessments of benefits. And that, for me, is all part of the politics of division and the war on its own citizens that UK Westminster government currently seems determined to wage. And sadly, I don't think that's just a problem facing the UK and its population, but a broader one associated with the ascendancy of globalisation and neoliberalism. I believe that what we're seeing with the current politics of welfare reform and pulling back state support and intervention is a new psychopolitics of oppression. So people, apparently we are told, support government attacks on people receiving benefits. Labour is listening to that. Disabled people, older people, mental health service users, survivors, young people, asylum seekers and others, they are all subject to these attacks because we are told, because people believe that they are not them. This is other people. We are not them. No matter that you may just lose your job or have something go wrong and you join the ranks of the people you are taught to despise and distance yourself from and not relate to. And you are not who you are told, but you are who you aspire to be. So we do not judge things from our actual vantage points, our identity and our experience, but of the illusion we are meant to judge ourselves by that they want you to have of what's possible for you, what you can aspire to, your aspirational self. We are who we aspire to be, not who we actually are. Meanwhile, social mobility has massively declined. Inequality has increased much greater and faster in the UK than elsewhere in Europe. Wages are going down, we know, and the super rich are getting richer and more powerful and more closely bound up with those in political power. This plays beautifully with psychiatry's distancing and pathologizing of the mad. We are seeing it more and more. And that's why Mad Matters, I think, is so especially important now. That's why it can be so helpful now. That's why it offers us a rallying cry now, which unifies us, has that potential, which highlights the value of experiential knowledge and challenges the discourse of diagnostic categorization. Together we can develop our social understandings and social responses to madness. We'll be able to take forward mad studies, mad action and mad pride, and more and more people will be able to identify this liberatory understanding because of the body of shared evidence that we are accumulating, which Mad Matters epitomizes, instead of continuing and feeling obliged to continue to internalize the oppression of today's neoliberal psychopolitics. I see today and events like today as more expressions of this flame and determination, further working towards people's liberation, and I wish everyone here the best in developing the ideas and the action, which combined, I believe, Mad Matters helps us to take forward and to help pioneer. Thank you.